All right. This is my opinion on the 2024 Nova Scotia provincial election. I want to tell you something. I'm not interested in any topic what they're talking about. Can you believe it or not? They're not even getting on the main topics that matter to the people at home. Isn't that funny? During the 2024 Halifax municipal election, that affordable housing was the ultimate dominant topic of the entire election. And here is Tim Houston calling the 2024 provincial election, and they're doing everything humanly possible to not address affordable housing. Only the NDP did, and they didn't even put it on their top topic of the election. Isn't that something? It's pathetic. It really is pathetic. The Nova Scotia Liberal Party should have had affordable housing on their top topic of the 2024 provincial election right away. Tim Houston, he could care less about it. Here's the NDP talking about if we get elected, we'll get rid of the polling stations, toll booths, whatever you call it, at the McDonald McKay Bridge in Halifax that crosses over to Dartmouth. So if you get rid of the toll booths, so who pays for the general upkeep and the safety upkeep of the McKay McDonald Bridge? I'm pretty sure that was the main general reason why those toll booths were installed in the first place. So you're going to tell me that you're going to try your luck, have no security, no safety maintenance on the McKay McDonald Bridge, and just allow traffic cross through at their own free will with no security checking of the bridge if those McDonald McKay bridges are still safe to cross with traffic going back and forth across? Don't you find that mighty risky? Don't you find that a little odd that you're willing to put people's well-being at risk just so you can get yourself elected? Is it that bad that politics will put people at risk? Here's the thing. The Nova Scotia Liberal Party is doing the exact same thing, but they're saying we will make it free for public transit. Here's the thing. Not every community in Nova Scotia has access to public transit, and not every community is a reachable distance for public transit to reach them. And they don't. Here's Tim Houston, right out of his mind, knocking on doors. He's going to the doors of his own Conservative Party. He's not going to the average door of any Nova Scotian. The last thing what Tim Houston is going to do is knock on a door of a non-political supporter for his party that's going to stand there and give them hell, cause them all kinds of trouble because they don't vote Tory. And that's basically what it comes down to. Every one of those political leaders are banging on the doors of their own political party supporters. They're not banging on the average Nova Scotian, taking their chances and saying to themselves, let's hope to hell that this person is going to vote for our party. Guarantee it. They already know that those people are their party supporters before they even get to the door. Come on, guys. Don't play it that bloody stupid. But when I just said the word stupid, the one thing what they're doing is they're not knocking on the door of the average Nova Scotian who knows their politics, who's going to pick them off. I guarantee you they're banging on the doors of the people who don't know their politics so they can lie, cheat, squeal, slime their way around these people so they can gain access to their electoral vote so they can get them reelected. They're not going to the doors of electors like people like myself who knows their party politics. They're not going to do that. Here I am educating people, telling people that party politics is the main root of the problem here in Nova Scotia. And they are. I mean, here's downtown Halifax. A housing crisis. Crime rates are going through the roof. People's cars are getting broken into. People who ride their mountain bikes in downtown Halifax, their bikes are getting stolen. We're talking quite fancy, rich, expensive mountain bikes being stolen. People are being harassed by panhandlers. Can you spare a dollar and all this stuff? Don't these guys get their paychecks with Department of Community Service or their pension disabilities or whatever the case may be? There's something wrong here. Tim Houston or or I should say all party politics here in Nova Scotia, are not getting the concerns that matter to Nova Scotia. Affordable housing obviously needs to be addressed. Obviously, the affordable rate has to come down so people can afford the rent. They can't afford rent. Here we are in the 21st century. People can't afford rent. Here we are in the 21st century electing people who should never have been elected in the first place. My MLA, Kent Smith, the man's a complete idiot. I would vote for anybody as long as they get rid of him. Issues in Nova Scotia are not being addressed to where they rightfully need to be at. Like I said in the past, Department of Community Services, there's more and more people in need of their service. And here's the Department of Community Services making people's situations worse than what they're doing any good for these people. And here's our province of Nova Scotia doing absolutely nothing to fix the problem. I heard so many horror stories about Department of Community Service causing people so much hassles. You got to make you wonder if this is your worthwhile going through the hassles to access their service when you need it. Here's the thing. I know a woman who worked all her life. So it was this one day she gets pregnant. Do you know what happens? She tried to apply for unemployment insurance for her maternity leave and all this stuff. According to her, I'm not going to mention her name, she lives on the Eastern Shore riding. So Doyle, if you're listening, and whoever the NDP candidates, I have no bloody clue who they are, because they don't have their signs up, believe it or not, so it's hard. And the NDP didn't even get no advertisements on them, any mentioning of who the candidate is. They worked all their lives. They try to go with their unemployment insurance, maternity leave, whatever the case may be. She just fell that short. Can't qualify for unemployment insurance. So they suggest that she applies for community services, welfare for the time being. All right. They did everything humanly possible to give her nothing but grief, trying everything in their power not to help her out. Does that sound familiar? Nova Scotia, what do you expect? She was going in labor. They wouldn't contact her, tell them basically she's going in labor. She's going to have her baby. They tell her, can you come in our office, fill out a few forms, so we can start the process? How is this person supposed to go in the office, fill out a few forms if she's going in labor? They asked for some sort of a termination notice of her apartment from her landlord, and the landlord was a little hesitant at giving it because they stated if they fill out this form that she would have to leave. And basically, Department of Community Services was putting her at risk of going homeless. And they were causing her a great deal of trouble, doing anything humanly possible to not give her her money. She qualified for community services. She worked her whole life. She gets pregnant. She's in labor. They don't want to help her. So her MLA at the time, Diana Whalen, gets involved. She qualified for it, but yet the province is still, their community services is giving her a great deal of hassles. And now here's a province putting her, the community service putting her at risk of being evicted from her apartment. They're not paying her, so her rent's up. So what do you expect? And plus this, what is this termination notice with the community service? Are asking them to fill out what? Here's the thing. Why would the province have their Department of Community Services cause this kind of trouble for a person who worked all their lives? It's not hard to tell when somebody's not trying to help themselves when they are. It's very simple. Diana Whalen got involved. There was such hassles. Diana Whalen went to the Minister of Community Service, went down, and it turns out that her caseworker's secretary wouldn't put any of her phone calls to her case manager, Department of Community Services, and that caused an issue. Why can't the client contact her caseworker? Why is the secretary not allowing this client to contact her caseworker? What's wrong with this picture? That's basically what Diana Whalen was doing. She qualified. Why can't she talk to her caseworker? So you know what happened? Diana Whalen and the Minister of Community Service informed this woman that this money is going to be forgivable. You don't have to pay it back. So that went on for a long, long time, and they would not pay her. So basically, the only home what she had is a hospital bed in the hospital. Not good. Her landlord was refusing to give her that termination notice, whatever, for her apartment because the landlord told her, basically, if I give you this, you're out the door, so I'm going to do you a favor by not filling it out. So in a way, the landlord was doing her a better job than what the province was doing. So Diana Whalen got involved again. She got real nasty, and she basically, it was Steve McNeil too, got involved, and she got that money to this woman who needed the service. So Steve McNeil wrote her an apology letter, and they contacted her case manager and her secretary. Basically, her case manager secretary took an awful blasting, and she was talking to Diana Whalen was talking to her case manager, saying, "Why is this woman going through these hassles for? There's no need for it. And why was she told that you have to pay it back? And after when the province just said it's forgivable, you don't have to pay it back." So it turns out the case manager got in trouble. She didn't have to pay it back. Steve McNeil and the Minister of Community Service addressed this woman. You don't have to pay it back. And at the end, she got her money. At the end of the month, she had about maybe a week left. She's going to be evicted because the province wasn't paying her. They're holding off for her paycheck. They're not willing to pay her, thinking that she's just some person just taking advantage of the system, to lying about everything what she applied for. I heard nothing but horror stories from the Department of Community Services when people needed it. I seen people on Department of Community Services who've been released from jail, a forensic hospital, the East Coast Forensic Hospital, the Abbey Lane building, facilities like that, where people were okay to be out in the community, but not okay to be out on the job site. And it got to the point where the risk level got too high to the point they exploded on the job site and they posed a risk to others. And I asked myself, why are these people on the job site? Answer, Department of Community Services has been threatening to cancel their claims if they don't go to work. So when an individual's in jail, in prison, or in a mental hospital getting help, the only time when an individual is released from those facilities is if they're safe and they're not posing a risk to the general public. A person may be safe to be out in the community, but it doesn't mean that their risk level is safe enough to be on a job site, because being released in the community and on a job site are two different cups of tea. And I see these people pose a risk to people that are forced to go to work because community service has been forcing them to go, even though that their doctor wrote them off saying they can't go to work because the risk level is too high. So now the question is, why is the Department of Community Services forcing these people to work? See what's wrong here? And I seen Department of Community Service giving people a real hard time to go to work when they got no use of their arms or legs, they can't talk. You know, I'm kind of bothered about this, you know what I mean? And here's the thing. If you got people on the service that's not willing to help themselves, the province should be canceling their claims. But the problem is when the province goes to fix the Department of Community Services, the problems that's within it, the Department of Community Services goes after everybody. See what's wrong? And in a way, that can be a form of harassment. And it is. If you're a government form, a government group of people going after people because one person done something wrong on a steady basis, is harassment. And that's what the government of Nova Scotia, what the Department of Community Services does. If there's people on the system that's not willing to help themselves, it's the only thing what they're doing with their monthly income is spending their money on booze and drugs and whatever their problems, their habits may be, terminate their claims and don't help them. Help the people who's helping themselves. Maybe, you know, the way how the community services pays people with the rent should be changed. Maybe the province should be making the people's rental payments directly to the landlord so people are not spending their rental fee money on other things like they shouldn't be. But the bottom line is the province of Nova Scotia and their community service division has to be fixed and it has to change. Now the other issue is with let's look at the forest fire issues. Not everybody has access to the internet. Not everybody can afford the internet. And not everybody makes $100,000 a year like your MLAs or qualifies for a wealthy pension when their term is over. Can you believe an MLA only has to serve a 4-year term, then they qualify for a wealthy pension? I got a problem with that. Here's the thing. During the summer months, if a person wants to check if they're allowed to burn an open air campfire or whatever outside, they got to go to the internet to check to see if they're allowed to burn. So if a person doesn't have access to the internet or can't afford the internet, so now they're out in the community, they're guessing, not 100% sure, we're guessing to see if we can burn. See how that can turn into a risky factor here? So somebody guesses and burns anyways, and the fire takes off, you got a forest fire. How is that responsible on the government's behalf? There should be an easy toll-free number for somebody to check up that's hassle-free, where somebody doesn't have to go through a great big rigmarole to see if they're allowed to burn in their community. But my suggestion is, why don't the province just eliminate the open-air campfire all summer long? Right from the month of April right to the month of October. No burning. If you do, I believe the fines were increased to $20,000, is it? And I've been asking the province, well, why is there no at least a 2 to 5 year imprisonment sentence for people who just don't give a damn? And that's basically what it comes down to. When you look at the community of West Porters Lake, every fire that they had was man-made and carelessness from the people of the community of West Porters Lake. Every damn one. So you think the province would zero in on that community and take drastic measures with people. My opinion, the police, the DNR, should have authority to go on people's property and take swift measures. Arrest a homeowner on site, charge them, put their fire out. And in my opinion, if a person is caught burning, and if it catches on fire, one of the things that causes a forest fire, what I've been saying what the province should be doing is seizing the person's property assets, everything, car, house, shed, everything what they got, and auction it off. Pay for the fines, pay for the community, all the damages that was caused out in the community by their actions, and possibly look at a 2-year imprisonment sentence. It's the only way how you're going to end this problem. But a government continuing to have their open air campfires, brush fires like they do during the summer months when it's off and on, you gotta go to the internet and check and all this craziness. You are putting the people of the Eastern Shore's livelihood at risk. There's a lack of respect. There's no respect. There's no care in the world. There's no responsible actions taking place. The province of Nova Scotia doesn't have the appropriate infrastructure on how to combat a forest fire properly. They don't have no water bombers. They got to rely on the province of New Brunswick to gain access to a water bomber, when the province of Nova Scotia should have a water bomber right here in their own backyard. But they got to rely on the Premier of Nova Scotia if they can lend them their water bomber, because we're going to put out a brush fire here in West Porters Lake because some blooming arsehole off the side that don't give a goddamn about the community or the damage what's caused. And that's basically what holds it up. And I'm not going to hold off for Kent Smith, because personally, I don't like him. I never did like him. He's a sneak. He's a punk. He's everything what you could imagine. Well, technically, that is what he is. He's a punk. And I'm going to tell you something right now. The only way, well, I can tell by things are going right now, that The appropriate measures is going to be held when the province is going to hold their grounds, make the changes to the open air fire burning laws, is if the people of the province sues the government of Nova Scotia. That's the only way how it's going to be, how it's going to end. And that's how usually things end, is like that, because, the people are going to have to just file for a lawsuit, sue the province of Nova Scotia. Tim Houston is a complete idiot. Everything what Tim Houston's doing, he's a complete copy of Justin Trudeau. Playing things that there's nothing wrong, we're going to fix things overnight. Tim Houston fixed nothing. The waiting times to gain access to a family doctor, if you can get one, is right through the roof. It's at its all-time high since when Tim Houston been in power. The surgery wait times, some people are on their deathbed before they'll help you or conduct the surgery, and what it comes down to is the reason why this is the way it is because you, the people at home, did not take responsible action by holding the government of Nova Scotia responsible. Stephen McNeil should not have gotten a 2-year term. He should have only got a 4-year term. Stephen McNeil, in my opinion, was no better than Daryl Dexter. Daryl Dexter was a complete failure. He didn't deliver on what he said he could do. People had their hopes. Here's the big change. The only change that happened was Daryl Dexter's pocketbooks in his wallet. That's all that changed. Same thing for Stephen McNeil. When the NDP was in power, Daryl Dexter was going to shorten the qualifications for their wealthy pensions for the MLA. One time, an MLA, to qualify for a wealthy pension, had to serve a 4-year term. Daryl Dexter makes a suggestion saying, let's make it a 4-year term. So Steve McNeil gets up, I'm not going to have that. Boy, that's too costly for the taxpayers. My God, we can't have that. That's an awful, terrible thing. So Stephen McNeil gets in power, and he becomes the Premier of Nova Scotia. And what's the first thing Stephen McNeil does? He does the exact same thing what Daryl Dexter suggested. He shortened the wait period for an MLA to qualify for their pensions, and now they only have to serve a 4-year term because Steve McNeil went back on his word about the pension qualifications. So now you got MLAs collecting a wealthy pension when the average Nova Scotians do not have a pension. Ain't that something? And top it off, half those MLAs that are running for office never even worked a day in their lives, so imagine. So that just says it all right there. But the word incompetence had been hanging over the legislature quite a bit. I mean, when you look at the word incompetent, look at the province of Nova Scotia. It's everywhere. Tim Houston's incompetent. He's just playing politics. What we need is a government that's going to change things. When I looked at the history of Nova Scotia, the only thing what they've been going is going back and forth, flip-flopping from Liberal, Tory, Liberal, Tory, Liberal, Tory, Liberal, Tory. That's all they've been doing, and that's why we got problems. One time they brought the NDP in. One time. And every time when the NDP ran, they never had any person that was a possible minister worthy of being a minister if they were to form government, form their own cabinet. They only did it one time. And each time when I seen the NDP running in office, they never had no good, solid leader except for, Daryl Dexter and Gary Burrell, who's a good, solid leader candidate worthy. And then they got another guy who won't run because he's a former member of Parliament, and that's Peter Stauffer. The NDP has to go to Fall River to Peter Stauffer's house and ask him what's it going to take to get Peter Stauffer to come out of retirement. That's what they have to do. They're not doing it. That's what they got to do. Claudia Chandler is just a Band-Aid waiting until the next NDP leader comes along. I'll tell you right now, Claudia Chandler is not going to be the next NDP leader. It's not going to happen. Not with her. And I can tell you right now, the NDP means well, but they're not even addressing the issues that matter to Nova Scotians. Affordable housing was the dominant force during the 2024 municipal election, and it should be the dominant force in the 2024 Nova Scotia provincial election also. It should be the top issue in Nova Scotia, because here we are at an all-time high of homelessness in Nova Scotia. How do we help these people to get housed, and how do we make affordable housing safe affordable housing? Do we deny people from these facilities that has criminal records? Do we set aside a certain apartment units for people that pose a risk to others? Maybe that's what the province is going to look at. But the bottom line is the people who have issues, mental health issues, alcohol issues, drug issues, whatever their issues may be, they're 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 toxicating safe, affordable housing for people to live in. We have to remove these people, and we have to make affordable housing safe for people to raise their families and live a healthy life, to live their lives while they're in those facilities. But when I look at Nova Scotia, I see a third world country. The Nova Scotia Liberal Party want to bring eliminate the bus fares for public transit. All right, well, here's the thing. Instead of putting tax dollars on that, why don't we lower the rate to public transit bus fares so people can afford to get on the bus? The community of the Eastern Shore have been struggling with their community transit because, when the bus, if it wasn't for the community of East Preston, the Eastern Shore would lose their bus. The community of East Preston is the community that keeps that bus afloat. The Halifax Transit bus route number 401, if it wasn't for the community of East Preston, the Eastern Shore would lose their service. Flat out. The community of Musquodoboit Harbour wanted a public transit bus. Now here's the thing. They're not dedicated enough. That's the one thing what I learned about the Eastern Shore. It's one thing I noticed about them saying, we'll get on this bus if it's here and all this stuff. They'll promise the stars, the moon, everything what you could possibly wish for. The bus has been going out to Porters Lake, West Chesapeake, Grand Desert, Seaforth for about 20 years. The very people that were crowing, requesting a public transit bus, not one time out of the 20-some years that bus has been in operation for the communities of Porters Lake and the Eastern Shore did they ever step foot on that bus. So what you got is a bunch of people talking a bunch of craziness, and they're basically hollering and screaming about stuff that they're not even committed to. If they were committed to public transit in their community, now the question is, why are they not getting on it? They always have a reason of not to get on that bus. The communities of Porters Lake, West Chesapeake, Grand Desert, Seaforth, Musquodoboit Harbour, Gates Brook, all the rural communities, Lake Echo, are rich and middle-class communities. They got their fancy cars, they drive to and from work, the big houses, If you're low income, if you're poor, you stand out like a sore thumb. They're the ones that need the public transit bus. They're the ones that will use it. So how can we make that service work? You got good, healthy hours of operation. Could be a little better, but it works. It's there. How do we get them on the bus? Now, here's the thing. In 2012, during the municipal election, it was promised by David Hinsby in the Halifax region municipality. It stated that Porters Lake, Lake Echo, and Minesville, Porters Lake, Mineville, and Musquodoboit Harbour, I should say, was promised to get a park and ride for the community. But only the community of Porters Lake had one constructed. Here we are in 2024. Just Porters Lake still. I asked David Hinsby what happened. I called Halifax Transit. This is what their manager told me. Dave, I'm going to mention his first name. His name was Dave. He told me, he said, Adam, the community of Musquodoboit Harbour, the Halifax Regional Municipality, Halifax Transit, had abandoned the idea for a public transit park and ride to be constructed in the community of Musquodoboit Harbour. They gave up on them pretty much. So I speak to David Hinsby. He disagreed, but he had stated the other option was to relocate that park and ride location in the Eastern Shore Industrial Park in Chesapeake, where the new Eastern Shore Consolidated's going, the new junior high and high school right across the street. They said they were looking at that. All right, makes better sense. But the HRM, Halifax Transit, has stated that for the community of Minesville, their park and ride is still on the go. So if Doyle Sack Churchill was the great dedicated person to their election promise about a park for the public transit, Why don't they ensure David Hinsby that they will give the land to the city so they can construct their park and ride for the community of Minesville? And for East Chesapeake, where the new high school is going. You think you would, you know. You know what I mean? This provincial land and then industrial park in the first place. Give them the property. The government, these party politics are basically saying all these promises, goes in a cycle over and over and over again. Maybe one promise they'll fall through with. The last provincial election, didn't Tim Houston say that he's going to have universal health care in place for everybody, for the people who need it? Here it is, 2024. I don't see it, Tim. Do you see it? I'm having a mighty hard time finding this universal health care, this mental health care system. Tim, you know where it's at? I can't seem to find it. He lied to your faces, just like Stephen McNeil did when he stated that he would have a family doctor for each and every Nova Scotian if you elect him as premier. Tim Houston lied to you the exact same way how Steve McNeil lied to people about giving you a family doctor if you elect him as premier. That's basically what it comes down to. And are you going to hold him accountable, or are you going to just flip things back and forth? Liberal, Tory, liberal, Tory, liberal, Tory, liberal, Tory. Well, that's all I've been seeing for the past 10,000 years since the politics been invented. I think we got to get rid of party politics. Let's just put it that way. It has to go. Because the only people that is benefiting here is themselves. Their wealthy pensions, their wealthy paychecks, and their wallets. Their pensions. Half of Nova Scotians don't even have a pension. They don't even qualify pension. In fact, they retire in poverty. Poverty. Not good. And when you look at the workforce in Nova Scotia, it's often very unappreciative, often hostile. Often you get employers that are doing everything in their power, just looking for, just aching for a reason to get rid of it so they can save $2 to their name, so they can hire somebody else to replace it, so they can find cheaper labor. No job security. That's the number one thing what everybody looks for: job security, healthcare benefits. The problem with healthcare benefits is when somebody's getting ready to retire in their 50s or 60s. That's when they need their health care plan, and when they retire, guess what? They lose their health care plan. You can't rely on the Nova Scotia pharmacare. That only goes so far. That got more holes in it than Audiki Boat in the middle of the lake. It's that bad. You'll sink faster with the province than you are with an employer who has health care plans. So don't dare retire. But that just shows your gut. And here's the other question. On safe job sites. Just a couple weeks ago, a woman in Walmart, a kid, was it 19, working for Walmart in the bakery department. How is it humanly possible to walk inside an oven, get locked inside, and get burnt? When I seen that story on the news, do you know what that reminded me of? Adolf Hitler and the Nazi death camps. That's exactly what it reminded me of. And when you look at it, I said, how in the hell is it humanly possible for somebody? How is that humanly possible? This here makes no sense. Is there emergency shutoffs switch inside the oven? And did this employee know that it was there? And did she receive the training to be aware that that switch is there? Did she hit it? Did it malfunction? Why was she in that bakery by herself? If she wasn't, why didn't anybody alert the staff? Why didn't he just pull the plug? The bottom line is that oven should have been easily shut off. Very simple. And there's more holes in that story, because when I seen that story, I often thought maybe that was a murder taking place. Because that's exactly what came to my mind. And in my opinion, I think the province really needs to rehaul its labor safety codes in the province of Nova Scotia. You report unsafe job sites to the province, what's the first thing the employer does? They fire you and say that your work ethics is no good because you report it to the labor board. So how does a person report unsafe work practices if their employer reacts in their termination? To just say your work ethics is no good, go away. That's your work for reporting us. The province has to sit down and listen to the lead investigators with the Nova Scotia Department of Labour, Health and Safety Board, so they can understand what actually goes on the job site. Because what you have in the legislature right now is a bunch of people with no educational background on what actually goes on the job site. And they're just there sitting behind a desk with no knowledge of what's going on the job site. And they're just saying, yeah, whatever. But when it comes to fixing the Nova Scotia the Department of Labour Optical Health and Safety Act, they're making things worse. They really are. Me, I got my pension. I could give a goddamn about the employment here in Nova Scotia. I'll tell you so right now. In fact, I refuse to work for any employment here in Nova Scotia because Nova Scotia employment, like I said, is just disrespectful, it's unappreciative, and it's unsafe. It really is unsafe. And Maine, there's one Dexter Construction, a job security union tried to form there one time. They were going around threatening to terminate people who choose to vote in favor of the union. Here we are in the country of Canada, and this is allowed to go on. And it was also happened with Dexter Construction during the federal election. They made it known if people who vote NDP during that election, if they were to find out who was voting for that party, that person would be not coming back during the next construction season. Canada we live in, and this crap's going on. I believe the owners of Dexter Construction should be confronted by the province of Nova Scotia and the municipality, the Halifax Regional Municipality. And in my opinion, I think they should stop giving the Dexter Construction any contracts and tell them see what's wrong with Dexter Construction. It's run by a rich person. There's no real control on what's going on and all this stuff. If you have this stuff going on their job sites, accountability has to be enforced. If people vote in favor of the union, if that's what the employees want, that's what you do. I mean, it's not like that Walmart in Quebec when they formed their job security on their job site. Remember that in Quebec? What's the first thing Walmart did? They closed up their store. So what does that tell you? So those are things what Tim Houston and all parties got to be realize what's going on here in our backyard here in Nova Scotia. In my opinion, they're not aware of what's going on. They're just running for the benefit of themselves and nothing but themselves. And this federal election, I'll be up front with you. I'm not interested in anybody. I'm actually in danger of not voting. And if I do vote, it most likely will be the independent people, whoever that may be. But that's how pathetic it is here in Nova Scotia. So this provincial election, the main topic should be affordable housing, how we can make people's lives better, and afford rent. But anyways, would anybody ever combat this? I doubt it, but it's a bad mess what this province is in.